Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Behind Her Brand Leadership Talk. Today I'm excited. You guys have mentioned before in our magazine, we have a lot of parents and families who have children that have different I always mess up that word, neurodivergent, sensory, different, I won't say challenges, but just different needs, if you will.
Mhm.
And so we have Christia, am I saying it right?
Yes,
I don't want to
yes.
mess up your name, okay? DeShields, who was featured in one of our last issues and offers such great insights around that. But we're going to talk to her today about her businesses, her love of education, and also her love of family and God. Okay,
Yeah.
so welcome today. I'm glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I love what you're doing, and I just honor you for celebrating all these wonderful women and their stories. And so, thank you, thank you.
Oh no, well, you're welcome. And I do have to say this one small thing. Y'all are going to notice that we have similar last names. Her husband is my cousin, so it was such a blessing. He's such an amazing guy. But it was really cool learning more about you, about your story and the things that you shared. So I would love to first ask you, just tell us a little about who you are. Just however you want to share, like about your family, your love, your faith, whatever comes to your heart. Who are you?
Okay. Well, awesome. Oh, my name is Christia. For my maiden name is Parker.
Mhm.
And so I was raised a preacher's kid and a teacher's kid. My dad was a pastor. My mother was a teacher. And I was one of those girls, those little girls that like sat their dolls up and like taught them, but that I always like ran away from
Yeah.
teaching because I was just like, my mom's like, you should be a teacher. I'm like, no way, kids are
Mhm.
crazy. And so, I just kind of, went on and pursued like some other interests. I was always interested in like fashion, media, community. I just
Mhm.
had like a lot of interests. If you oh, I forget what the Enneagram, I'm like a number 7. So like super
Okay.
like lots of
Yeah.
the time, like I kind of struggled a little bit because, I was kind of deemed as like kind of flighty because I always
Mhm.
had new interests. And so now, and and as an adult and still having those new interests, I realized that's the way that God like wired me. So that was some undoing that I had to do like with myself. And consider like all these gifts and all these interests like a blessing
Mhm.
that God has given me. So yeah,
Yeah.
raised a preacher's kid and a teacher's kid, and I was not the best student. I was very social
Mhm.
in in school. So reality didn't set in for me until I started
Mhm.
getting deny letters from colleges that I wanted to go to, and I was like, wait a
Oh.
second. So then at that point, I actually think that was the best thing that could happen to me because I had something to
Mhm.
prove after that. So
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I went to I took classes at dual enrollment my senior year. I took a couple college classes. I went to a junior
Mhm.
college and worked, and then transferred into a 4-year
Mhm.
university where I graduated with honors and
Nice.
things like that. So I had something to prove. So I tell my students this
Yeah.
all the time. It's like, and also with my having a neurodivergent son that struggles.
Mhm.
And it takes him a lot more work to do something than others. I think
Mhm.
parents, sometimes we try to take away our kids' struggle, but that
Yeah.
could also be their strength because he's like the most resilient kid I've ever met. And
Um,
so yeah, I started my career in media communications. I also have a degree in Spanish. I hosted a couple shows here in St. Louis, but I say that education kind of it chose me. And so
yeah.
I ended up being a Spanish teacher at a local high school here for several years. After my husband Kenny and I, we started having a family. And our first son, he was born. I wanted to be home with him a little bit more. As he
Mhm.
started growing 2, 3 years old, we realized, there was, some things going on. He was struggling with, and
Yeah.
realized it was sensory processing disorder, which is like your
Yeah.
sixth sense. It's like your proprioceptive sensory input is like
Mhm.
where your body is space and time. You don't really have a whole
Mhm.
grasp of that. So he would like it would look like behavior, but he was really trying
Mhm.
to regulate himself. And so
Okay.
that was a whole that was a whole kind of struggle.
Yeah.
But the Lord, I just say the Lord was with us every time, all the time. Anytime
Mhm.
we just felt so discouraged. He would just send someone. Like, we hadn't heard of, proprioceptive sensory processing disorder.
Yeah.
It's always like autism and different spectrums of that. And we had no clue what that was. And the Lord sent someone who was a specialist in proprioceptive sensory disorder. And she called us late at night, and she was just like explaining to us, what that meant and how we could help him. And so that kind of started my journey back into education. I know that was a little bit longer.
But I appreciate you sharing that. Because you are also a consultant in this space as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do in that space?
Yes. So I, as a teacher, before I even had children, I started to notice that a lot of our kids did not have grit. They didn't have resiliency. And so it just kind of shocked me, because I was just like, man, I just saw that their self-esteem, self-confidence, just like they would give up easily. And so when I started noticing that my son was going to face challenges in his life, especially in education, the way that education is set up, I wanted him to be able to advocate for himself. And so I feel like I always say it was like a download from heaven, like this book, Sensory Seeking Sebastian. It was based off of, I thought it was for him. And it's a book of strategies that rhyme, that teach kids, okay, if I'm in a new place, I can, take deep breaths. If I need to calm myself down. If a lot of these kids have especially kids with like ADHD has that as well, they're big helpers and they like to move. So like asking to be a big helper can help regulate a kid or a student. Like I always, as a teacher, I would always, those kids that had like lots of energy, I would make them my helper, my assistant teacher, and they loved it. And it got them out of their seat. It got them, doing something productive. And so I wanted this book to be that. And at first, originally, I thought it was just for my son. This is just going to be for him to read, see someone that looks like him, because that was another struggle we didn't see. And I thought that was it. I let a friend of mine read it, and she has 2 kiddos with sensory challenges, and she just started crying. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is what we need. So I was like, okay, this book is not just for my son. It might be for some people. So we launched it, and the response has just been incredible. We've been seeing it in like occupational therapist office and pediatric offices. Nice. There's a school in Mississippi. They purchased a copy for their whole student body, elementary school. Wow. Opportunity to read aloud, and Shiloh had my son Shiloh. He had an opportunity to talk to students. It's gone far and wide, far beyond what I can imagine. But my whole goal was to help students help themselves self-regulate, because mom and dad won't do that all the time. So you need to be able to understand how to articulate your needs. Oh, and so that's something that I help other schools kind of realize. In the school that we're at now, I was able to secure funding for a sensory room where students, if they needed that little break, they could go in there, do like this, we call it a sensory diet, where they go through the stations and then come back out ready to rock and roll with their studies again. And so I'm in the process of helping other schools and other students as well.
That is so needed, because one of the things, well, let me ask you before I say this, what would you tell to a parent who doesn't know if their child's having behavioral situations, or if it could be something with the sensory? How would they know the difference of that? Because
so the behavioral thing, it's like, I was like, he's not, and teachers will notice this as well. Teachers said the same thing. It's like, he's not a bad, he's like the sweetest kid. He's so sweet. But all of a sudden, he would do something. And so they just couldn't understand the all of a sudden. So I think it's that, like, your student, your child, doesn't typically act this way, but all of a sudden, impulsively, they just do something. So that could be indication that they need some sensory regulation. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's something we noticed even in our son, Caden, because they were classifying all these different things, but came to realize that he just has speech delays, but he also has sensory. And so, and we noticed that a lot too. And when you mentioned about, because he's active, like sometimes my husband say, night and day for my oldest chill, quiet.
Yes.
Caden is totally opposite.
Yes.
But I noticed if I do anything, he wants to help. Like, mommy, let
Mhm.
me do that. Or he's very independent. Like, let me do it. Let me do it. But he always has to be doing. Caden cannot sit still for nothing. And then at all. But we started noticing we had to give him certain things that would challenge him. He's very strategic.
Mhm.
So we knew that building blocks and things of that nature really helped calm him down.
Yes.
And so we just had to recognize that it wasn't what we thought was behavioral, but that there was other things going on. And we've seen such a huge change when we started
Yes.
to cultivate that around him. And now he's thriving. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing.
Mhm.
That's amazing because sometimes with like sensory, they need what's called heavy work. So they need to like we have a trampoline at school and at home as well. So kids can go
Mhm.
and jump on the trampoline because you think that might, rev up a kid, but it's calming. It's touching those
Yeah.
senses that need to be like regulated. At our
Yeah.
school, because we don't believe in students like chained to a desk for 6 hours a day.
Mhm.
So they have what we call strength and conditioning. So every morning before they start their studies, they're with coach and some of our high school students that like train them as well. And they're doing like obstacle courses. They're doing like all kind of things. And so when they come back into the classroom, they're regulated and they're ready to sit down and do a block of studies. And after that, they have another opportunity to get up and run around and move. And then we also offer like these, their specials, which is like soccer, dance, theaters. They have opportunities to get their wiggles out. They have opportunities to just kind of let loose and be kids. Because I think we've done our children a disservice by just like chaining them to a desk for 6 hours. They need to get up and move. Like when they play, they're learning, so that's kind of a philosophy at our school is that we want our kids up and moving a lot.
Well, before we move on to another thing, because I love all that you shared, and you have several books that you write on this subject. So where can someone purchase your books if they're like, okay, this is identifying with something that is happening in my life?
So they're all on Amazon. So we have Sensory Seek and Sebastian, but like I said, it's a book of strategy for students to help them regulate themselves. There's another book called What's So Great About Being in the Middle. It's about being the middle kid. We have a middle kid. So we realized, when one of your kiddos needs more help than the other ones, that one can kind of feel a little bit left out. And so that was a challenge that we were walking through as well. We wanted him to realize that we see you, we know you, we love you. And so that was the theme of this book. And we also have a book of declarations, affirmations, and prayers for students. So it covers all kind of topics. It covers just, self-esteem. It covers their identity in Christ, who the Lord made them to be. There's prayers for parents and for students about, ADHD, sensory processing, autism, friends, helping parents pray for their students to like pick the right friends. And so there's activities also in the book for parents to do along with their children. And then lastly, we have a navigating sensory processing disorder in the classroom. So that is a guide to schools to help them with this issue. A lot of times private schools don't have the funding or the resources or even the training to be able to understand this issue. And so I just wanted to provide a resource for them.
Wow, you've written a lot. Now, do you also speak, and I know you say you consult, but do you also do like speaking and training for other schools or associations and things around the topic?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's something I'm interested in doing more of in 2025, but definitely.
It's definitely a needed topic. We have a colleague, her name is Cherry Cruz, and she's been a SLP for about, she was a director for over 30 years. And so she helped a lot with Caden and things that we were kind of talking about. So a lot of things you're saying is very much in line. And we're finding that many people are, especially parents on the parent side, I'm sure you can relate to this, would love more information around this because it's not as shared in a sense. We were blessed at his school that they're very hands-on, but I've seen other families and it's not that case. So what you're doing is definitely very helpful to so many families.
Thank you. Yeah. As a parent and a teacher, I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot. In my education classes, I didn't have any, training. And so this is something that is constantly evolving and we're constantly learning more about. So I'm happy to be a resource for parents.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit. So I know that your faith and your family mean everything to you. And you also have businesses and you're an educator and all the things. So I know that there's no such thing probably as having like the whole life balance type of thing. But how do you really put everything in priority and importance when it comes to balancing all that you have to manage?
Yeah, I haven't been the best at that. So for context, I have a real estate. I'm a realtor. I also co-own a commercial and residential cleaning company with my husband. He's a creative. He writes music. I help him write music. So yeah, we have a lot. And I would say that sometimes it ebbs and flows in seasons. So like this past year, I didn't do a ton with real estate because we were building other things, but our commercial and residential cleaning company, we were building that, we were focused heavy on that. What we have been doing is like we just finished our vision and our plan for 2025. So we have family values. And so we like whatever, like we put everything up against like our family values. And so if it doesn't align, we don't do it. Yes, like you said, faith is heavy. We believe that the Lord speaks to us, and we're always like, Samuel, speak, Lord, your servants are listening. So we're like, Lord, what are we supposed to do in this season right now versus, in the next season of life or in the next year. So we're constantly praying and asking the Lord to show us like what he would have us to do in this season. And so this year it was heavy focus on our school, as well as building our commercial and residential cleaning company. But I feel like for 2025, I will be focused a lot on real estate. Real estate, I'm normally, well, not normally, but I focus heavily on investment and investment properties. So not necessarily like residential sales, but like investing. And so that I know that will be a big focus for 2025. Something that we also do is we Sabbath every Friday. And so, I mean, I feel like, and I heard a pastor say this too, that's the one commandment that a lot of us as Christians are like, oh, I don't need to really do that. But it's like the Sabbath is for us, God didn't need to rest. We needed to rest. And so we Sabbath because it's like saying, okay, Lord, we trust you to make up the difference. What we think we could do in all these days, you can do it in a shorter amount of time. And so when our Sabbath is to rest, to heal, and to hear from the Lord. And so the Lord is the focus of everything we do. And so for that balance, it's not always easy, but we try our hardest to like hear from the Lord, make sure we rest, and make sure we're focused on what he's asking us to do in that season.
I love that. So on Friday, you just take off the whole day, or it's just like, y'all get home from work and just kind of like the rest of it?
And it's like our kids' favorite day. We all gather around the table. We even eat challah bread because Sabbath is like a Jewish tradition. So we have challah on Friday nights, and so we Sabbath from Friday night to like Saturday evening. And it's just a time for us to like do things that we love to do together. It's a time for us to eat together. It's a time for us to just turn off emails, like turn off phones.
Yeah, just be present.
Yeah, and just be present.
Okay, so what would you say, because you mentioned something in the beginning, and it combines a lot of what you shared, to a multi-passionate and multi-gifted individual who feels like people are telling them that you can't do all these different things, or that you're chasing all these shiny balls and all these different things, when it could simply be that God has just equipped you to be that person. What would you say to them as a form of encouragement if they're feeling like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be this because of what everyone keeps telling them?
I know, I struggle with that so much. And I think like my first something that I stayed in for a long time was teaching. I taught at one school for like 7 years, but it was cool because in the summer I could pursue some of my passions. So that was awesome. But I would say embrace all those gifts and ask the Lord like what he would have you to do in that season. So you may have all of these gifts, but they may be off for a different time in your life. And so maybe one is rising to the surface more than the other at that particular time. And then another gift will rise. But I would say that is the Lord. That's the way that the Lord wired you, and He will use your personality to reach others. And so I honestly struggle with so much shame with that, because I just thought, oh, I'm not a stable person. But no, it's a blessing to be able to have all of those. I see those type of people as like visionary people. And so you may have that vision, but you may not be able to, you need implementers. So you'll have a big vision, but make sure you gather implementers to so that you can run with that vision. But having vision and having lots of vision is a blessing, because some people, they don't have any. And so I would just I would embrace it and take it to the Lord. Yeah.
I love that. Is there any closing like thought, scripture, book, or anything that you use to keep yourself inspired, challenged, and motivated?
Yeah, one that I've just really been just like meditating on is show me what pleases you, Lord. So in Exodus, I believe it's Exodus 13. I'll have to get the exact location, but it's in Exodus. And it talks about like wanting to do what pleases the Lord. So a prayer that I pray every day is like, Lord, show me what pleases you. And another one that I pray every day is like in Samuel, like when the Lord was calling his name. And then the last time He said, like, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So that's something that, show me what pleases you and speak, Lord, your servant is listening. It's something that I pray every day because I want to hear fresh from the Lord. I want to hear what the Lord is saying. And one other thing that we do as a family is we try to read a proverb every single day, because the Bible says, if you lack wisdom, ask of the Lord. And so wisdom is in Proverbs, the whole book of wisdom. And so if you read a chapter every single day, you'll read Proverbs 12 times in a year, because there's it kind of goes with the calendar. So today is whenever you start reading, you can read it like the 1st of February or something like that. If you read it all the way through, you'll have a couple days that you'll need to read, but you can read Proverbs one time a month, every month, and just like loading yourself up in wisdom. And so
I have never heard of that before. I mean, I love Proverbs, but like when you say about reading as a family, like throughout the year, and I never thought about it that way. But that makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, and it's just one chapter of wisdom every day.
Yeah,
I
like that. Well, I appreciate you for everything that you shared. And I want to leave with this thought too, because I love how you were talking about things that families can do, but also just even about the Sabbath. Like, I love that, because I'm a real big family girl. I love family activities and making that time. And what I'm praying and hoping that people hear is tap into new resources, which is really important, especially if you have kids with sensory needs and things of that nature, but also remembering to carve out time for you and your family. Make that a priority, even if other things may not be where it needs to be, but your family needs to be centered. Your family needs to be together. And I know that's very paramount for you. You can see that throughout your social media. You can see your love of Christ, family, and y'all are all very creative. But I love that. It's out there. People know who you are because of the fruit that you all bear, but also for what you guys show to the world. And so I appreciate your time and your insights and everything that you shared and all the things. I really do appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, it's such an honor. Such an honor.
So what I'm gonna have you do is, real quickly, you said Amazon. Do you have any websites or anything like the businesses that you mentioned? Because I know you all have a branch here in Texas too for one of your businesses.
Yes.
So I would love for you to share the website.
Yes, the website for our cleaning business is onthespotcleans.com. And then my website is Christia DeShields.com.
And we'll make sure to put all that information up there for everyone. But I thank you guys for joining us again for another one of our Behind Her Brand Leadership Talks. And I want to encourage you guys to reach out to her. We're going to put all the links for you guys to be able to go to see the books, the website, and all her different businesses. But more importantly, I just pray that you all walk away with at least one nugget, even if that one nugget is reading Proverbs, and getting that wisdom on a daily basis, or even tapping into the resources that she has that can help either your your kids, or if you know someone that has kids with sensory needs, this is a great way to bless her business, bless her family, but also bless the kids that can be helped by her resources. So thank you all for joining us, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.